Every time I describe a city, I am saying something about Venice. When asked about his home, Polo exclaims to Kublai Khan this powerful line. Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino explores imagination through descriptions of cities by explorer Marco Polo in conversation with Emperor Kublai Khan. It consists of separate prose poems describing 55 distinct fictional cities of which Khan rules over, narrated by Polo. These poems can be read as allegorical, exploring themes such as language, time, memory, death, and human experience. This quote, in which Polo states that he is saying something about Venice each time he recalls a city he adventured to, for me, it connotes that within each alien place he visits, there is something that reminds him of his home, as there are similarities with each city everywhere one goes, even if the landscape, culture, or overall atmosphere is wildly different. The same can be said for an individual. Each individual one meets, while drastically unique, still carries certain aspects of similarity. The city as a concept is a perfect lens to explore art through, and can be a great source of inspiration for the creation of a performance or artwork. Within this essay, I will elucidate and evaluate how the city can be used within art, and why I choose to utilise this concept through the idea of the city as a maze, as a labyrinth, and as a character. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the definition of a maze is a confusing, intricate network of passages, usually with one entrance and one exit. The design of a maze is done to trick the participants and cause them to get lost. This act of getting lost opens the door to exploration of the maze. There are many ways to conduct yourself when completing a maze. One method includes the participant placing their hand on either the left or right wall and following that wall, eventually bringing them to the exit. However, some may say that this takes the fun out of the maze, and the true way of completing a maze is by pure intuition and instinct, following whichever path draws you in the most. It's no surprise that one can compare the layout of a city to that of a maze. Cities are extremely built up with an expansive network of roads, streets and alleys interconnecting with each other. There are roads that lead back onto themselves, dead ends and multiple pathways to get to any point within the urban grid, so obviously people are likely to get lost. All of this accentuates the comparison of the city and the maze. So, if the city is a maze, how do we navigate it? Guy Debord, in his essay Introduction to a Critique of Urban Geography, defines psychogeography as the study of the precise laws and specific effects of the geographical environment, consciously organised or not, on the emotions and behaviour of individuals. This means that for every aspect of the geography of a certain place, be it a statue or a certain building or a bit of foliage, has a psychological impact on our mental state. To me, this indicates that we, as individuals, are drawn towards certain routes, subconsciously or not. When on our travels through a city, this aids us in knowing where we are, as certain aspects of the city will stick out in our minds and allow us to more easily navigate the city over time. This, to me, shows a direct correlation between cities and mazes. As if psychogeography is present within a city, then the same must be true for a maze if completing it purely off of instinct. Certain paths will exude an energy which entices the participant, much like how certain routes within a city will draw one in. When creating a performance, this knowledge of the city as a maze and its relation to psychogeography allows for rigorous exploration of setting and the objects or structures within these settings, and how it affects not only the viewing experience, but perhaps potentially the narrative within the performance as well. According to the Labyrinth resource group in the article about labyrinths, a labyrinth is a circuitous and sometimes complex path that one walks from an entrance to the centre, then back again, oftentimes used as walking meditation. This means that there is a set path one must follow with only one entrance, which also functions as the sole exit. This meditation is oftentimes used in a ritual practice or a way of altering one's consciousness. After completing a labyrinth personally, I can say that I experienced a state of Tao or flow in which my body moved almost separately from my own thinking. My thinking was clear and focused on what I wanted to gain out of it as I silently chanted a mantra while slowly circling into the centre. I also did the same on the way out. Supporting my own experience within The Way of the Labyrinth, a powerful meditation for everyday life, Helen Curry explains that it is no surprise that in many cases, especially during a ritual occasion, to walk a labyrinth brings one into exquisite states of renewed awareness, deepened consciousness, and even trance. Using Richard Schechner's definition of ritual, he describes rituals as a performance of repetition. Thus, even completing a labyrinth in itself could be seen as a performance. However, I believe that the labyrinth itself can be a great tool in the process of the creation of a performance, as completing a labyrinth allows one to come out of it focused on a particular aspect of their own life, and if one goes in thinking about the creation of a performance, they may come out of it with a more clear understanding of what they wish to create, or at least the first steps they need to take towards it. It could also be used as a method of getting into character for a performance, as one can focus in on the character whilst completing the labyrinth and then leave as the character. To me, whilst a city is a maze originally, once an individual has become accustomed to the city in question, it becomes a labyrinth. Take for instance the route to work. Many people will take a set of certain roads to the place they work and not deviate from that route unless absolutely necessary. A person follows one route to work, the centre of the labyrinth, and then comes back the same way when returning. In addition to this, many will say that when they take a commute to a certain place that they go often, the way there and back, they're in a flow state. If we take this into consideration when we're thinking about a performance, for me, the idea that if a narrative takes place in a city which the character is familiar with, whenever they go to a certain place, they should take the same route back, and then if they don't know where the city is, then they should maybe not take the same route back. And this kind of gives a sense of realism to the character, as they are acting as if they inhabit the world the same way we inhabit ours. This also allows for the audience to become aware of certain parts of the city that the narrative takes place in, allowing for a deeper connection to the setting of the narrative. Now, during this video, when I have referred to a performance or narrative, I am usually thinking in terms of a film performance. I'm clarifying this as usually this is my preferred mode of performance. I also feel as though it is the mode of performance which lends itself most easily to showing or utilising the concept of the city, as you are more easily able to move around the city through the use of a moving camera. However, this is not to say that it is the only way, just what I find most effective in my own practice. One could stage a walk around the city in which the tour guide or other actors could perform whilst on this route, for example. Doing anything akin to these forms of performance also allows for the city's own character to be exposed and emphasised. One may ask the question, how can a city be a character, as it's not a living thing which is performing for the audience? To which I would respond that they are incorrect. In City as a Character, Tyler Malone writes, "We mistake the city if we take it for mere setting or plot. The city is character. It breathes its own life, speaks in its own tongue, moves to its own rhythms." Something of which I wholeheartedly agree with. I believe that a city's character is the culmination of all people, art, cultures and history within it, and when one travels to a new city, this character is palpable within the atmosphere. Therefore, the use of a city's character is a great device to explore different concepts, and to bring that character to the forefront of a performance can be extremely effective in creating an atmosphere or tone of a performance. In addition to this, using a city's character to inform a performance can allow for great performances, specifically about a given space. In fact, the whole idea behind site-specific theatre is the use of space's history or atmosphere to heighten the performance. Obviously, the same can be said for any social space. However, within the city, I believe, is the most multifaceted, and so it lends itself to a wider scope of performances, in my opinion. Overall, the concept of the city to me is an extremely effective lens to use when creating a performance, as it lends itself to the idea of both the maze and labyrinth and can also be explored as a character. In addition to this, the concept of psychogeography shows that when travelling around a city and subconsciously being captivated by certain aspects of said city allows for influence and inspiration when creating, with everyone's influences and inspirations being unique to each individual. The city speaks to us, and so we should have a dialogue with it in order to create art in the best way we can. As Dr. Nicholas Wybrow states in Art and the City, art doesn't just adorn a city, but in that interactivity between people and artwork, something comes about that we call a city. Thank you for watching.